You've probably heard of verbing nouns or nouning verbs, but did you know that there was an ancient rhetorical name for that process? If not, why not come Anthemeriaing with us today? Welcome back to the Quintillion Institute of Words About Words. I'm delighted to share with you our latest rediscovery, the word anthemeria. Like many of the words that we work with every day here at the Institute, the word anthemeria is an old rhetorical term. It refers to the process of using a word as a different part of speech from its typical usage, that is, using a noun as a verb, an adjective as a noun, and so on. Admittedly, the trouble with some of these old rhetorical terms is that they can be hard to keep straight. Modern linguists have simplified the matter by using instead the word conversion, of course, to describe the process of converting a word from one part of speech to another, so I wouldn't be offended if you decided to remember that word instead. However, I always remember the word anthemeria by thinking of my dear old Auntie Miriam. You see, she lives in the mountains most of the year, but she also has a house on the beach where she stays in the winter, you know, to get away from all the cold and the snow. So, like with anthemeria, my dear old Auntie Miriam is a mountain dweller, except of course when she's not. When she's wintering at the beach, she's a coastal lady, just like a noun spending some time as a verb. Now, as you're setting words up in their seasonal homes, there are two kinds of anthemeria or conversion to be aware of when you're writing. For our purposes, we'll call them conventional and rhetorical. With conventional anthemeria, you're dealing with words that have just become a standard part of the language. Historically, they were formed by swapping out one part of speech for another, but they're just a part of common usage now, so nobody's really going to bat an eye if you use them. So it's really not going to excite very many readers if you say that so-and-so was going to butter up what's-her-face. You see, it's just a term that we use now to describe the process of flattering someone. Of course, that doesn't change the fact that butter was and is originally a noun, but instead of using a whole verb phrase to talk about applying, or perhaps more historically throwing butter at someone, we just use the simple verb to butter up. Similarly, if you book an appointment, you're using the noun book as a verb, meaning to put the appointment in an appointment book. Now, if you were with us when we talked about the term metonymy, this process might feel a little familiar. But the point is that nobody's going to call you a brilliant poet for thinking to use the word book as a verb. It's just something people say. Now, with rhetorical anthemeria, we're dealing with parts of speech swapping that isn't a conventionalized part of the language. These are the kinds of twist-arounds that may surprise and delight your readers because you're making your point in an unusual and unexpected way. So perhaps so-and-so and what's-her-face are out for an afternoon at the archery range when, in a terrible twist of fate, one of them gets arrowed. Of course, this is not a typical usage of the word arrow, it's usually a noun. Or you could write that on the Ides of March, Brutus went out for a stab. Here, a verb becomes a noun, and a friend becomes an assassin. Of course, it's not all random acts of violence. Somebody may ask you to describe your friend, and, at a loss for words, you may say, well, he's very Brian. Here, you're using his name as an adjective, and hoping that that will get the point across. The idea is that when you use a word in a way that differs from its typical usage, people are going to stop and pay closer attention, for better or for worse. So if you're using conventionalized anthemeria, there's nothing too special going on. That's just you writing. But if you use rhetorical anthemeria, swapping out parts of speech with a particular effect in mind, then you can be sure that your readers are going to perk up and think a little more carefully about what you meant when you surprise them with the unexpected. But anyway, I'm sure that's a whole lot more than you ever wanted to know about anthemeria or my dear old Auntie Miriam, who is, of course, every bit as real as the large and very well-funded research staff here at the Institute. Now, do you have to use anthemeria in your writing? Well, no, of course not, but you can, and I find that it's always easier to try out new things in my writing when I have a name for them. So I do hope you'll give it a try and share your inventive anthemeria with us in the comments. At the same time, if you liked this video, why not thumbs it up and give us a subscribe? That kind of support always means a lot, and it's a great way to make sure that you stay up to date on the cutting edge of ancient words about words. But the point is that nobody's going to call you a brilliant poet for coming up with the idea of using the word book as a noun, because it is one.